Dalai Lama, and he was kind of, trying to get in there. It was like, well, what if they were talking about in general, the tenets of religion, and specifically in his case, Buddhism. It's like, what if we could use science or science could prove without a shadow of a doubt that a certain tenet of the religion was inaccurate or disproved. So for instance, like reincarnation. If we could prove without a shadow of a doubt using science that reincarnation was not a fact, it actually did not happen, then what would happen? Then what would you do? He's like, we wouldn't believe in reincarnation. You know what I mean? And he's like, so, and then he kind of sat there for a minute, like, I don't think he was expecting that answer, Because Dalai Lama is as much of a scientist as Carl Sagan is, for sure. But just, he's a scientist of a different type of subtlety. In the West, we've gone outward with our science, and in the East, they went inward with their science. And so he then kind of, so you're saying if we could set up an experiment to prove that reincarnation was false, you would no longer be believing. He said, yes. And then he's like, with his like belly laugh and his enthusiastic ass, he's like, so when will we be setting up this experiment? We went over to Stanford the other day because the Karmapa, the 17th Karmapa, who is really next to the Dalai Lama, among the highest of the most held up high lamas in the Tibetan tradition. That's a 400-year-old reincarnating lineage tradition. And if you look into who this guy is, it's pretty phenomenal, pretty wonderful. Maybe more than 417 of them. So it predates the Dalai Lama, and it's considered a manifestation of their deity Avalokiteshvara. Anyways, that sounds all phenomenal and like mystical and cool, and it is. But when we went and we brought our son with us to Stanford, and he was speaking in the auditorium there, and it was a real cool talk, but it's just like, there's not that much that can be said that hasn't already been said. So it's not truly, I don't believe or experience it to be anything other than what we're going there for is that present, the magnetism, the presence, really. And that's where the transmission comes. And we get a little nugget of wisdom here and there, but mostly it's about being in the presence. And my experience was with this guy who's 29 years old. And escaped from Tibet, was identified in Tibet when he was 7 years old, and then escaped from Tibet in, I believe, around the year 2000, and now is in Dharamsala and Sikkim. So anyways, but it wasn't, we listened to him, and my experience, impression was, it was just like, it wasn't like, oh, it's so like mystical and otherworldly and heavenly, and yet it is that, I'm sure. But more, the thing that I really came away with, like, just that dude's real. He's just like, that was the best thing I could come away to describe it. Like, it was just.
He didn't want to say He didn't want to say a bunch of spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
He was just being really cool, just real.
Yeah.
And there wasn't some spiritual jargon. He didn't actually want to talk about religion. And he wasn't doing that to be cool. He was doing it because he's being real. That's what was so cool about it. Like, it was just an everyday conversation. We didn't have these big, lofty ideas that we were talking about. And it was just really awesome. It's really real, down to earth. It's real.
Yeah, and then very human, but also you could tell there's definitely something there, like very, very powerful presence. But just like, oh yeah, this is like a guy I'd love to hang out with. And we were leaving the auditorium. We left there in a different way than we came in, and we just kind of talking and flowing with our own flow, and we just, by whatever synchronistic flow of events, as we were walking to our car, we were walking right, and we see that the Karamapa is being escorted out to his ride. And he had a pretty he has to travel with a pretty impressive entourage because, he has to be protected. He's held like a precious jewel in that tradition, and there's plenty, it's dangerous, essentially, to be the Karamapa. Simirit said when she went to his monastery in Sikkim, that there's like machine-gunned guards outside. So he has to be protected. So anyway, he's coming out with this big entourage, and we just, fortunate enough to just be passing right there, just us and a few other people. And we didn't talk to him, but we definitely got to stand there with him, make eye contact, and he just waved, and we were very, and again, it was just like, wow, that dude is so real. Like there was no distortion, and there was no extra thoughts, you know what I mean?
Right.
There was nothing but presence, but it wasn't like, we didn't fly off into the cosmos. It was just like fully human, embodied presence.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you do tantric or you're in deep meditation and you come out of that and you're just like, there's no extra thoughts. You're just fully there. That was my, my limited perception. And I look at Simirit, she's in tears, and just
Just from
happy,
seeing him,
yeah.
just from feeling him and feeling the realness of what he is. That was enough. I got a transmission. That's why we went. That's why we went, was to get that transmission, just from his presence. We didn't go to hear him talk. He didn't say that much, honestly. It was like profound, it wasn't like that. But it was profound to be in his presence, just to be real with him, like really real. And it ignited that in us. I really felt real when I was around him, inside.
Yeah, so the thing is that it's exactly what this stuff is doing here. When I'm in a body, as long as I'm in a human body, there's 5 things I've got to take care of. There's 5 things that are gonna express themselves, for better or for worse. And that's earth, water, fire, air, ether. They call these they call them in the Ayurveda Panchamahabhutas, 5 great elements, or the language we typically use in Kundalini Yoga, these 5 tattvas. Earth, water, fire, air, ether. And those elements are going to express themselves. The body, that's why I love Ayurveda, is because it's sophisticated and profound enough. As you study the rest of your life, you'll never reach the end, because it doesn't end. There's no ending to it. It's this, Ayus means life, and Veda is like knowledge or science. It's the science or knowledge of life itself, of prana. So those 5 tattvas, earth, water, fire, air, ether, that's what makes up the body. That's what gives rise to the mind. So instead of it being this incredibly complex science of understanding all the different infinitely complex processes of your physiology, it becomes in a certain way a poetic understanding of how your organism operates. And it's simple enough you can teach it to our kids. And we should teach it to our children. This very simple understanding of how this thing works, so that it starts to generate the appropriate presence for whatever it is that you're here to do. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So that's what that presence thing is about. That's what it's like. We don't proselytize. Proselytizing is a drag. You know what I mean? It really, like, on both sides, isn't it? Like there's like no win-win situation. It's kind of a lose-lose. At least in this day and age. Maybe it worked 200 years ago, but I don't think so. So it's about a smile, It's about having that type of laughter and that type of warm-heartedness. And that's why I love the science, is because what does it do? It unpacks and it guides the mind into what is happening that would actually cause your organism to project warm-heartedness, because I can't cause myself mentally necessarily to become like warm-hearted. You know, it can help a little bit, but ultimately, I need to create the circumstances, or what we could call the conditions, that cause warm-heartedness. And that comes from the radiance. And that's essentially what the science of yoga and Ayurveda is all about. I've got 5 tattvas. Earth and water on one side, air and ether on the other side. In the middle you got what? Fire. You following me so far? There's a little